let's look at healthcare as a model. Nowhere is the tool as important in terms of payment mechanisms, in terms of insurance, in terms of access to the underprivileged. I mean, insurance is something which is, the need of the hour over here. What are the lessons that we can learn from elsewhere in trying to bridge this gap here?
Yeah. I think we've been talking about technology usage, and I'm really passionate about, where you can use technology in healthcare. And we didn't have that 10 years ago.
Sure.
But if you talked about the rural poor becoming urban squalor, why do they come to the cities? The vast majority of Indians travel for healthcare. They get on a train or they get on a bus and they go to their nearest city to figure out what's wrong with them. So we've been doing now teleradiology and telemedicine the last 10 years in India. And what we find is you don't need to travel for a diagnosis. If you could send your doctor sitting in Bangalore, your patients in Itanagar in Arunachal Pradesh, you tell him exactly what's wrong with him, write his medications, and he stays right where he is. He's not adding to the carbon footprint, and he's not spending a week getting a diagnosis. So I think telemedicine, we've been talking about it, and a lot of the telemedicine was really video conferencing.
Sure.
But the technology has changed. You have a digital stethoscope. You can actually listen to the patient's heart. So he can sit in his village and get an opinion from a doctor wherever he is. So that is going to, in the next decade, change how things are done. We've been trying since independence to get doctors to go out to the villages. It hasn't happened. So I think we just accept that reality and then figure out how we can use technology to take the doctor to him virtually.
The Asian tigers are a great example because from the 80s, mid-80s to the mid-90s, they saw that regeneration and building that we are seeing now, in a sense. What did they do? And, I'm sure you must have, studied a lot of the PPA models and how that worked in urbanization. What are the lessons that we can learn from there? There are 2-3 things that we need to do right now.
Well, certainly we're talking about the need for creating more dense urban agglomerations than we've had so far. Has been a trend that has been seen in most successful urbanization or urban renewal efforts that have been followed in Asia. The interesting thing is that if you look at the data for the last several decades, certainly for India and for actually much of the developing world which has not done well, while urban growth rates have been phenomenally high, while the land area occupied by cities has grown very rapidly, the densities have actually come down.
Sure.
We've actually been using, for the last several decades, more land per capita urban population than we did in the past. We are therefore wasting land, therefore creating long supply lines, creating unnecessarily long requirements for transportation of people, goods, water, electricity, what have you. FARs have actually come down. We were talking before we started this morning, isn't it? That Mumbai used to have a higher FAR years ago than it has today.
Sure.
So the need for being able to pack people, and that doesn't at all mean a decline in the quality of life. Actually, it means just the opposite. To be able to make cities more dense is a lesson that we learned from Asia, where there has been success. Singapore's been mentioned, Hong Kong's been mentioned, where we've been able to remove slums, and buildings have gone vertical. You've reduced the need for servicing them, the cost of servicing them, and thereby released precious land resources which have then been monetized and delivered.
So Manihar, the cities are really, great cities are those where you can live, work and play. And what the world has come to a conclusion is that high livability in a city is very closely related to high density.
Let you have the last word on this, because somewhere down the line, we have 2-3 parallel waves that are happening in India. One, we're trying to play catch up. 2, we've got this wave forming which we need to tackle. The third is that we are also part of a global landscape where
Correct.
cities need to compete with each other.
Exactly.
Because as commerce and economies develop, you will need expatriates to come here and work. You need to be creating global headquarters here as the markets shift east.
Yeah.
And so does it then become even more important for the governance issue, for the policy issues to be tackled over here?
Yeah. No, it's you make several profound points. Let me break it at 2 levels. One is just the urgency of the moment. If you just look at that from an India point of view, 1.2+ billion people, 60% of them under the age of 27. The world's largest teenagers live here. 600 million of those children live in rural areas with 1 teacher. Poor healthcare, poor jobs, poor prospects. nothing more dangerous, more volatile than having young kids who have no aspirations, no future, no understanding, and a lot of time on their hands. Just for that reason, we have to get things done. Then comes the more positive reasons. Why would we want to do it? Because you want to make a difference and you want to do things. I think if you listen to what we have said here, several points are, one, this idea that when you think about sustainability, it cannot be one or the other. And going back to Amitabh's point and the others, this social, we need to have a cities of soul so that you can live and be happy. That's the one. The other one is, I think in order to make this happen, you need to have visionary leadership. This is not going to happen with lack of visionary, with no visionary leadership. Second one is global standards, going back to your point. Today, no two cities are run the same way. But
Sure.
you don't have telecommunications if you didn't have global standards. You would not have global travel if you didn't have global standards. We don't have that for cities. The third one is smart regulation. All our cities in India are built on policies of 150 years back. Forget about 100 years back. So it's not even recognizing the digital age. And that's the other problem. And the last two, which I think we have talked about, public-private partnerships. Too much of our public-private partnerships globally, it's not an India problem, but globally, the public or the government is trying to avoid spending money, and the private is trying to avoid risks. And it is not a very good model for public-private partnership. It has to be truly a unique model where you do what you need to get done. And then the last one is the emergence of new ecosystems, and that should be global, where you bring in these partners who will come in and build things, and where they said you can do it on a digital network. Today, it would be stupid if you build a city or a building where you say, I'm going to build this building and then I'll worry about water and electricity after the fact. But we're doing that for cities without digital. And you can't do that if you're building a city that's going to be around for the next 30 or 40 years. So I think these 4 things or 5 things that we've talked about are the thematic points. And the time is now for those.
And time is yesterday, actually.
Yes.
Thank you so much, gentlemen and Sunita, for joining me today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.